Hey everybody, Steve Fredland here with another video about our experiences in Rwanda. And today we're going to talk about baboons. We're going to talk about our experiences with baboons at Akagera National Park in 2011. We had a mugging and we had a potential mugging. So we had a lot of encounters with baboons. And the way it started is we do our humanitarian trips. We spend 7 to 10 days in Kivuruga, Rwanda. And at the end of those trips, we take a safari as a way of decompressing, team building, experiencing Africa, all of those things. And in 2011 was the first time that we went to Akagera National Park in eastern Rwanda. Now, at the time, they only had one place that you could stay. It was called the Akagera Game Lodge. In 2013, they ended up building Ruzizi Tented Lodge, which is where we stayed in 2015. But 2011 was at the Akagera Game Lodge, and it was great. But we arrived late at night. I don't remember what time it was. I think it was like 1 in the morning. It was super late. It was dark out. And we had rented out a private building that was going to be used for our entire team. That was our biggest team. And anyway, so we were going to rent this place out. So we went, traveled, we walked to the lodge. Then from the lodge, we carried all of our stuff to this separate building. We got inside and people started looking around and there were bugs, there were lizards, all kinds of stuff on the inside. And it made a lot of our folks pretty nervous. And so I worked with the staff and we ended up being able to get back into the lodge areas to have private rooms. So we had 1 to 2 people in every room. We got back into the lodge. Luckily, they were able to accommodate us. And so we got in, we got settled, we went to sleep. And then I remember about 5 in the morning hearing these clunking on the roof, it sounded like. And so just kind of wondering what was going on there. And I looked, I opened up the curtain. We had a little balcony deck area outside of each room. So I opened up the curtain and there's a baboon staring right at me. Like, oh, what have we here? Well, it turns out there's baboons all over this place. And that in the morning they start jumping on the roofs and jumping onto the balconies and looking for food and what have you. And we found out later that these baboons were in the trees all night. So when we were walking to the lodge, walking to that private area, walking back, carrying all of our stuff, there was baboons everywhere. And if you've never seen a baboon close up, they have big teeth. They can look ferocious. They can be ferocious. But we had no idea. We were just oblivious to the whole thing. We were just trying to avoid lizards. And so anyway, we ended up going to have breakfast. And it was during this time of preparing for, we'd all just agreed, let's just meet down for breakfast. This time of preparing for breakfast and going down kind of in shifts, whoever, we just kind of went down there. We didn't have a big plan to meet beforehand. We just walked down there. And there was these open walkways that were actually outside to go from our rooms to there. And that's where these things happen. So first, I want to share with you Janie's story. Janie is a mugging survivor. She did not get mugged, but she had a very close encounter, which left her pretty shook up. So you're going to hear Janie's story first, and then we're going to come back and then we'll hear Gina's story. Gina was actually mugged.
Hi, my name is Janie Pearson, and Steve has asked me to share my baboon story. And I was part of that 2011 trip team that went to Rwanda. It was one of the best experiences of my entire life. And at the end of the trip, we took a little safari time at Akagera National Park. And we stayed in kind of like a game lodge, sort of like a hotel, rustic. And one morning I went down to breakfast and we had noticed that there were baboons roaming freely on the property. In fact, I took a couple pictures of them and you can see this was from our balcony. You could see the baboons peering down at us as we walked towards our rooms. And they're a little spooky looking, but one morning, like I said, I was walking to breakfast down in a hallway. I was up on maybe the second or third floor. I was a little late for breakfast. I think everybody had already gone down. And all of a sudden, I was confronted with 2 baboons that were standing there staring at me, stock still. They just stood there and stared at me, and there was no way to get around them. And there were rooms on my left. The balcony was on my right. I didn't want to turn my back and walk away from them. I was a little nervous about doing that. So I was literally trapped. And in my hand, I had a little baggie of malaria pills, which I think is what they were interested in. I think they thought it was food. But I didn't want to give up my malaria pills. But I was starting to panic a little bit. I really didn't know what I was going to do. I tried the trick of looking really fierce, putting on a really fierce face and telling them to get away, but that did not do anything. So then I decided I would yell to see if anybody might be in one of the rooms that could help me and maybe open their door and let me in. So I called out, "Is anybody around? Help." And there was no response. I think everybody was at breakfast. But I kept calling, and fortunately, Millie, who was one of the World Vision staff traveling with us, opened her door all of a sudden and motioned me in, and I was rescued. And so that's my baboon story. I'm glad I lived to tell it, and I got to keep my malaria pills.
So I felt really bad that Janie had been trapped there. We didn't even know about it until later. Like, oh my gosh, that's so sad. I'm so sorry. We should have figured something out, but we didn't know. And so with that, now let's shift to the mugging story that Gina went through.
Hi there, my name is Gina Harsey, and Steve Fredlin has asked me to recall a moment in time when I was on a trip to Rwanda with him and I got mugged by baboons. So, in light of that, I'm wearing my African necklace that I got while we were there. And so here goes. So, we had been staying at a lodge, and the lodge, the main lodge where we ate breakfast was in one spot, and where we were sleeping and staying was in another spot, and we had to walk from there on a sidewalk to the main lodge outside. And this particular day, we were gonna go on a little adventure on a safari and see the animals. And so I still have it. I had this bag that my family that we sponsor had given me, filled with little bananas and all sorts of things that they had given to me. So I had the little bag and I had it filled with DEET wipes for our trip, binoculars, and I wanted to share snacks with everyone on the trip. And so I put Cliff Bars in there. I had 2 boxes of Cliff Bars and this bunch of bananas that my sponsored family had given me. Well, me and my roommate Shannon ventured out for the day. I had my bag. We were ready to go. We were going to go have breakfast at the lodge. And I'm walking, enjoying outside, and bam! Out jumps a baboon. Looks at me with its teeth, and I looked at it, and it ripped my bag, and I still have the evidence. Look at this. It ripped my bag, pulled it down, and ripped it. Here it is. I've kept it as a little prop here to show my kids, and now I get to show you. So he ripped it out of my hands, and my first instinct was to just pull it back, like, that's my bag. But Shannon, being wise, she said, "Gina, back away." And so Shannon and I slowly backed away from the baboons. Actually, there were 2 baboons. I forgot to mention that there were 2. But only one had, at that point, ripped it out of my hands. And as I'm walking back, the baboon is rummaging through my bag. He's tasting everything in there, the DEET wipes, through those. There was lotion in there too, lotion, just rummaging through it, through the binoculars, doing anything. Comes across the Cliff Bars and the bananas, and they took off out by the woods, and they enjoyed their favorite snack. They were opening the Cliff Bars, eating the bananas, and meanwhile, Shannon and I went into our room and we're like, what are we gonna do? We need to call someone. Someone needs to help us. How are we gonna get out of here? And then we realized we're in Africa. There's no phone. And so we started yelling to see if someone would hear us and we could get to someone else. And eventually they sent a man with a stick and he came and rescued us. And from that point on, we all had to link arms with another man and walk together to the lodge. So that is my story of recalling the baboon mugging.
Hi, my name is Shannon Lynch, and I have been lucky enough to travel to Rwanda with Steve a couple of times. And so he's asked me to share a memory from Rwanda. So I'm going to share the baboon mugging story. So the first time I went to Rwanda, we stayed in a lodge that was home to many, many wild baboons. Gina Harsey and I were sharing a room, and we had run back to our room to get a few things, and we're leaving, and you had to walk outside on a walkway to get to your room. So we're leaving the room. Gina's walking in front of me, and all of a sudden she just stopped, and she was just standing there. So I wasn't really sure what was going on. So as I got closer and looked over her shoulder, I realized that she was sort of in a tug of war with a baboon. She had put some snacks and fruit in a bag, and the baboon obviously knew that she had goodies in the bag, so he was waiting for us when we came around the corner, and she had a hold of the bag, and the baboon had a hold of the bag, and we were just sort of frozen, not knowing what to do. And finally I just said, Gina, you have to let go of the bag. And she so didn't want to let go of the bag because it was a bag that had been given to her by her sponsored family. And so it was really a struggle for her, but she finally did let go of the bag, and we ran back to our room and closed the door, and we were going to call the front desk to have someone come and get us. But then we realized there was no phone in the room, so we were kind of stuck there. And so I opened the door, and I was peeking out, and I'm looking down there, and I'm watching this baboon one by one take everything out of Gina's bag, look at it, smell it, maybe try to bite it, maybe try to eat it. So we didn't know what to do. And eventually the group had been waiting for us in the dining room and started wondering where we were. So Nicole Forbes had come looking for us. And by that time the baboon had gone, but the bag was just sort of laying there, everything splayed open, scattered on the walkway. So imagine what Nicole thought. She comes upon Gina's bag everywhere. We're nowhere to be seen. So she goes running back to the dining room thinking something horrible had happened, and they came and got us. Obviously we were fine, a little shaken maybe, and it was funny because as we were leaving our room and going back with the group, off in the distance we saw the baboons sitting there, crouched down, eating their Cliff Bars that they had stolen from Gina. So we always kind of joked about it being a marketing campaign for the Cliff Bar people, that baboons like the Cliff Bars. All in all, it was a fantastic trip. Just got a little bit more up close and friendly with a baboon than we ever thought we would. So that's the baboon mugging story.
Okay, go. Okay, so I was walking out of my room, I was carrying this bag, and all of a sudden a baboon came up and ripped it out of my hand. And he started opening Cliff Bars and eating them and digging through my bananas. And then all of a sudden we run back in the room and we're like, ah, we thought one was gonna come in. And then Shannon, she's peeping out, she's like, maybe I can scare him. I'm like, no, just leave him. And then she said, it's eating your DEET wipes. It's eating your DEET wipes. And we're sort of like,
it's
no,
eating your what?
Don't eat the DEET wipes.
Oh, you're
DEET
kidding.
wipes. And so then,
yes.
I don't know, they didn't get them because I have those in here,
But show us what they really wanted. What was in your bag that
Cliff
they
Bars.
really wanted?
It was trying to eat the sunscreen.
Oh,
Here, it took a bite out of my DEET wipes.
you're kidding.
The bananas are all gone.
Oh,
2 boxes of Cliff Bars.
Oh,
And they're out by the woods, opening them, just eating them.
Oh, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is,
So, hang on to your bag and watch out for baboons.
but he literally was grabbing it out of your hands?
Oh yeah, he ripped it out of my hand.
Oh my
He came
gosh.
right up to me and just,
But they like those Cliff Bars.
yes.
So you never know quite what the experiences are going to be when you go to Rwanda. You experience amazing things on the humanitarian side. You experience things that are just absolutely heart-wrenching, experiencing absolute things that are just joyful, connecting with people. It's walking this line of of pain and of joy and sorrow and grief and happiness, and all kind of at the same time, all mushed together. And then you go on a safari, and that's an opportunity for us to build memories and experience Africa in a way that most people never can. And it's unbelievably amazing. But you just do never really know what's going to happen. You are going to third world Africa, and it's wonderful. But there are incidents that you just don't know, you can't plan for, you can't prepare for. They don't put that in the guidebook. It made us a little bit nervous. But afterward now, it creates amazing stories that are almost unbelievable. And this, to me, was absolutely one of those. I remember we would carry sticks, and we would have to show our teeth like that, and that would scare the baboons away. And so just knowing that you have to figure out a way to try to scare baboons is intimidating enough. And so I would practice this when we were out on safari, and I'd see baboons. I would show my teeth and see if it would work. So you just never know what's going to happen. But the experiences we had in Africa are unbelievable. This is actually the hat that I bought in 2011 at Akagera National Park. One of the few souvenirs that I actually invested in, and it just brings back flows of memories from that just absolutely amazing trip with amazing people, and stuff I'll just never forget. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of our experiences in Rwanda with baboon encounters.